All right, guys. So this is for the salesperson who discusses value with clients, especially in terms of money and finances. So today we have Miles Walker, who's a graduate of UCF in business admin. After graduating, he got into financial planning and is now a wealth strategist at Poly Wealth Management, specializing in working with car enthusiast clients who have the desire to secure their financial needs while making room to have fun behind the wheel. So, Miles, thanks for coming on. If you can give us a quick story of where you came from and how you got to where you are.
Well, I'll do the short version because the long version's kind of, long. So, I grew up in Philly and moved down to Florida in 2017, where I went to UCF and then obviously graduated from there. And then I actually was interning at Northwestern Mutual, and that's kind of where it all started. I knew I wanted to be in this role kind of as a financial advisor. It's been something I wanted to do basically since my junior year of high school. So when I was able to accept the internship with Northwestern Mutual, I mean, it just made sense. It was more insurance based, but it's essentially what I wanted to be doing. We're doing plans, we're helping people financially because a lot of people, when it comes down to it, just don't know what they're doing, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's just not really taught in our schooling system. So that's kind of where I wanted to be able to plug in and help people out. And then after, I want to say eight months at Northwestern Mutual, I accepted an offer to come here and work for a boutique private wealth management firm, Poly Wealth Management, and it's been going great, and I've loved it. I hope that answered the question well enough.
Yeah, definitely, man. Oh, special guest.
I knew he was going to do that. He wanted to be a special feature in your episode, Miles.
Didn't walk on the keyboard. Captured him.
Yeah. So I was curious to know, a lot of people freeze up when you talk to them about money. I know that is like the main part of your job with your clients is to discuss financial wealth. I'm sure like assets, the positives, the negatives, all of it. Do people tend to have some kind of reaction to meeting with you, or at that point are they usually like ready to have this conversation? And yeah.
I would say most people are not ready to have it, and most people don't think they need an advisor until it's too late. So at that point, there's only so much we can do. So a large part of my job is just kind of telling people, you know, it really pays and benefits you to start now. I mean, there's always going to be a reason for someone to put it off and say, oh, you know, I'm going to wait for this, I'm going to wait for that, I'm going to wait until I'm in the right situation. There's never going to be the right situation. You're always going to be able to talk yourself into some excuse for putting it off. So a large part of my job is just kind of getting people to understand, like, you know, the sooner we can take control of your finances, the better off you'll be. So getting started at the age of 25 is going to be a lot more beneficial than getting it started at the age of 35 or 40 or 50. It's just, it's mind-boggling how the difference from just starting even just a couple years apart can be when it gets down to retirement and just the amount of money that you have to get through the rest of your life at that point. So yeah, I mean, I think the largest part is people don't necessarily like talking about their finances, especially when they're in a situation that they don't like. People don't like talking about it, but a lot of times that's just what needs to happen to make improvements. So I would say a lot of times when I'm talking to people, especially the first time, they're not, they don't always see the value in it. And it takes a little bit of back and forth before they kind of understand it and I'm able to help them. But I mean, yeah, that a lot of people just don't see the value of it. And that's one of the obstacles I'm always trying to fight.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds a lot like, you know, the first sales call where you have to be very clear in like why does this have to happen now? Like either you reached out to me or I reached out to you, but like we're talking and we need to figure out why now. Because
Mhm.
or else it's so easy to put something off when money is involved, decision making is involved.
Exactly.
People clam up, and you're right, it's your job to establish that value as best as you can at first interaction,
Yeah.
so
And you
that
also, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was also just going to say it's also just so important to just build that kind of trust and relationship with all the people you're talking to. Um, Even on my end, because I mean, I want to build trust with the people I'm talking to, but I also want there to be some kind of relationship between the two of us. Like I want there to be, um, I want us to get along. I don't want to work with people who I don't like. Like if we're working together, I see us working together for 5, 10, 15, however long our relationship lasts, and we end up working together. I don't want to work with you for 15 years if I don't like you. So that's also just a large part of it as well, is just kind of building that relationship, building that trust, and then also showing like, hey, let's take control of our finances now, and we can do some good things with it. Let's take it up to the next level.
So, Miles, of course, networking is very important in sales. We actually met because one of your LinkedIn posts showed up in my feed, and when we got connected, it turns out we grew up about 25 minutes apart, and both moved to Florida in 2017, and now live about an hour apart. So, can you tell me the importance of networking to you and what it's done for you so far?
Yeah. I mean, networking has really presented all the opportunities that I've had up until this point, besides like the college jobs I had just serving or bartending. Networking is how I've gotten all my jobs and internships. So when I was at BlackRock, I got that internship through just people I knew. It was a connection that someone I knew, they knew someone who was on my team there who was hiring interns. So like it just ended up working out well that way. And then at Northwestern, it was uh, just someone I knew who had a friend who used to work there, who put in a good word for me, and I ended up getting my internship there. And then as far as my current position, it was also just someone I met through LinkedIn. It was um, my my supervisor Sean just reached out to me on LinkedIn, and we went back and forth talking for probably 6 or 7 weeks before a decision was finally made. But I mean, networking has really presented me all those opportunities, and then further than that, networking has helped me strive in the positions I've been in. Uh, if it weren't for that, I mean, I wouldn't have met all the people I did at Northwestern, and that wouldn't have helped me get to work to my current position. And then even in my current position, I mean, I'm networking every day. I'm looking right here. I have a Post-it note with just the things I try to do every day, and they're all networking related. LinkedIn, um, calling people who I've talked to. It's all about just who you know. So, I mean, you can't really stress the importance more than networking is what drives my whole career essentially.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think, it's funny how because of that, you found a potential client in me, and friendship too, just being able to meet up and go to some car
Yeah.
meets and sharing a hobby, all just because an algorithm on LinkedIn. So I think beyond just like getting sales too, like you said, it's meeting people, and a lot of doors can open that way. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't try to sell to every person you meet. I mean, a lot of times it's just, oh hey, like I'm just meeting you and I'm just enjoying talking with you. Like Andrew, the first time we hopped on the phone, we were just talking for 30 minutes. There wasn't any pictures or anything. It was just, let's just get to know each other. So that's the fun part of networking too. Even if you don't end up working with people, you still get to meet cool people and like hear cool stories and hear about cool projects they have going on. So it's more than just work. It's just a good time. Get to meet new people.
Yeah, man. I definitely want to mention, I think you did a great job with that too, because like you said, our first call, we pretty much just talked about cars the whole time, and we needed to book a second meeting, and you didn't try to pressure me with anything. It kind of came up because I made a comment about finances and dream cars, and you saw the use case there. So I think that's something that's very valuable. I think a lot of people in sales, especially when they're younger, is they go right for the kill.
Yeah,
And there's a time and place for that. Depends on what you're selling. But I really liked your approach and how you did that. And how you mentioned earlier in the call is like relationship building. Like you want to
yeah,
like who you're working with, and you want them to like you too, because if you're going to work together for 10, 15 plus years and you're creating a book of business, it's important that there's a mutual trust. So
exactly. I don't want to, like, if we didn't get along for that 30 minutes, like, we wouldn't be on this call. We wouldn't have another call set up. Like, it just wouldn't be happening. So it's very important to just kind of test that relationship and see if it's even there.
definitely.
So, Miles, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your past in your career. Is there any kind of failure, like one that you had to overcome and learn a lot from, that you thought maybe this is the end for me? It felt real at the time. I just want to know, what did you learn from it, and how did you move forward?
Yeah. So I actually have a good answer for this one, and it's something that I haven't really shared with a lot of people because honestly I'm very embarrassed by it. Like even some of my closest friends don't know the true reasoning, and that failure is based on the reason why I even moved down to Florida. Before I used to go to Temple University, and personally I was not a big fan of that place. It just wasn't in a good location. It was right in North Philly, like just not really somewhere you want to be. Now I have a bunch of friends who went and graduated from there, and they've loved it. So I'm not saying it's a bad university. I just didn't like it. Um, but the reason I was no longer going there is because I mean it had really started to affect me and my grades, and I had actually failed out of Temple, and that was kind of like the bottom point or the breaking point where I was like, all right, like we need to make a change. And I want to say it was like the first or second week of May. I was just about to start my second year with BlackRock, doing my internship with them. And I was just laying in my bed and I called up my mom and was like, hey, I'm going to move to Florida. I know you might not be on board with this, but I'm going to come up with a good plan and we're going to make it work. Like, I'm going to get down there, finish up school and get started on the career I want to be in. And I mean, I've been able to make it work. And that's probably the thing I'm most proud of about myself, just that I was able to come back and get myself in a good career and finish up school and basically kind of do it on my own. Obviously, my parents supported me throughout, but my closest family member right now is Atlanta, which is like 5 to 6 hours away. So I don't really have like that family support here. Obviously, I've built up a bunch of friends and support that way, but yeah, I mean, that's my biggest failure. I mean, I failed out of school and I'm still in the career I want to be in. I still graduated and I'm still living in the place where I've wanted to live for a while. So yeah, and I mean, not a lot of people know that because I'm very embarrassed by that story of just failing out of school.
Miles, I wouldn't be embarrassed about that at all, man. I think Florida is probably the capital of the country of where people go for a fresh start. Um, I think I think the change of scenery is very psychological, just the aesthetics here, you know, like seasonal affective disorder in the Northeast is real. And I think a change of scenery is good. And it sounds like you weren't running away from your problems, you were facing them and then handling it in a new way. So I would not be embarrassed by that at all. I think I'm not the interviewee here, but just to relate to you, pretty similar thing for me. Barely made it through high school, just not liking classroom learning, and then only doing a semester of community college, and just moving here to try to get a fresh start. So sounds like we have a lot more in common than I thought. But
Yep.
you got a degree, I didn't, but we're both in a spot now where we're happy, and I think we're both doing pretty well. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So
thanks, Miles. That's really cool. And I agree with Andrew. Like, that's not running away. That's facing your problems and having courage and getting stronger by, taking responsibility for yourself and what you want. I mean, both of us do come from, you know, a place in a community where a lot of our friends didn't, finish college, didn't even go to college. That is by no means the marker of a successful career and a successful, happy life. It sounds like where you are right now and what you're doing right now, that's the marker. Like, you achieved your goals, you're working on them every day, and you're only going to go up from here. So yeah, congratulations. And
That's good to hear.
yeah, it's very inspiring too.
What's something that you've done successfully in your career that you're happy about? And I know based off last question that turned into a success, but is there something else that stands out to you?
Yeah. So I think I shared this story with you last week, but when I first started working at Northwestern Mutual, one of the first prospects who I spoke to, and we went through a full financial plan with them. The setup was a little bit different at Northwestern Mutual. Basically, we went through financial plans with people before they became clients, when they were still prospects. And one of the biggest impacts on me was someone I met with. After we did the full financial plan, me and my joint work partner at the time were able to go into our next meeting with her and tell her, hey, if you actually put less money into this retirement account, you pay less in taxes and actually be able to retire 2 to 3 years earlier than you originally thought. She was super worried that she was going to be working well into her 70s, and we were able to say, like, no, that's not really the case. So you'll be able to retire around the age of 65, which is fairly typical. And just her response from hearing that news was just wonderful. And that was kind of like the point in my career. I was like, oh, okay. Like, we really kind of do some cool stuff here. We're not just, trying to push products or whatever. Like, we're really changing people's lives. Like, now she knows she has this financial plan. She didn't actually end up becoming a client, but now she has this financial plan where she knows, like, all right, well, if I follow what they said, I should be able to retire at this age and not have to work until 70 or 75. So, that was pretty cool. I'd say that was like one of my success stories, even though she didn't become a client, but we'll forget that.
No, it's okay. At the end of the day, you help someone out drastically. I would love to hear that. Someone tells me to retire a couple years earlier while putting less money away.
Yeah.
I mean,
spend less
sounds
money.
like a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that's what you're in it for, is like that feeling of getting to help someone, which doesn't happen that often. I mean, especially in sales,
In sales. So when those good stories come up, you got to remember.
Right.
It keeps you going.
Yep. Okay, so I've got one last question for you. Are you ready for it?
Let's do it.
So I would love to hear one actionable thing that anyone can do today, right now, to get better at sales.
Like someone who does sales for their job.
Yeah, and so I guess because it's a soft skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not a salesperson per se, but a big part of your job is showing that value and talking people into the timeline and making sure that they know the benefits to them, selling them on the idea of it. So yeah, maybe not something like technical, but something like a soft skill that you think someone can work on right now, some kind of task they could do.
Honestly, the biggest thing that helped me was just, I'm sure this may sound like super cliche, but I thought it was fairly true. It was just being comfortable being uncomfortable. Like when I first started, calling people I hadn't talked to in 5, 6, 7 years, that was weird. Why am I just calling them now? Yeah, well, I better get used to it. It's a little bit uncomfortable, so I'm just going to do it. Kind of reaching out to people especially when you're new into a career, and especially in my case, like I'm trying to set meetings with people, and the first people I was reaching out to were people in my personal network. And it's weird because a lot of these people I've grown up around. So in my mind, I'm picturing them like, oh, well, they might still see me as this little kid running around like at our family get-togethers. But in reality, like at this point in my career, like we're professionals. We get paid for what we do. We're professionals. So the way I think is kind of like I deserve that kind of respect. So they probably don't see me that way. And it was just kind of something like a mental thing I had to get over, and just it was a little bit uncomfortable at first, but I mean, if I never did that, I wouldn't have ever I wouldn't have gotten my first clients, and I wouldn't have been able to branch out from there. And if that never happened, then I mean, none of this would have. So it's really just being used to being uncomfortable and just doing the things you don't want to do. Even when it comes to small things, I think the way you do one thing is how you do all things. So recently I started listening to this podcast that really kind of drills that into your mind, is basically finish what you're doing and be disciplined. So if you're like this morning, this happened, I was leaving and I had some dishes, and I'm like, I really don't want to do these dishes, but I know it needs to be done, so I'm not going to put it off till later. I'm just going to get it out of the way now and just do it. So like I just did all the dishes before I left. I don't enjoy doing them, but I know it needs to be done, so I did it. And I kind of think the same way about sales. You might not enjoy it, but at the end of the day, you're in this job to get paid, and if that's what you have to do to get paid, then you should probably just do it, whether it's going to be enjoyable or not. You have to find a way to make it something you enjoy. Maybe sometimes just as simple as changing the phrase. The podcast I listened to this morning from that same guy, he was saying just your mindset and the words you use have such a big impact on you. So instead of saying, oh, I have to do the dishes, say, oh, I get to do the dishes, because there's hundreds or thousands of people who can't physically do that. Like they just don't have the capabilities. Or, oh, I get to reach out and talk to 30 different people today. A lot of people don't have that opportunity or don't have that chance. So a lot of times it's just about your mindset and even just rephrasing things differently to kind of get you going. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just super uncomfortable, or super important to be comfortable at being uncomfortable. And then just the last thing that popped in my head is just investing in yourself. We do so much for other people that sometimes it's easy to forget about yourself. And, you know, once you graduate school, that doesn't mean you're done learning. So like a big part of my day is I try to just read something 15, 20, 30 minutes every day that I think will add value to my life or to my work or something I do. So whether it's listening to like podcasts that I think are helpful or reading books, I mean, I always have my tablet on me, so I'm always able to just, if I want to take a break from stuff I'm working on at work, like, all right, I'll just read for 20 minutes. And it might not be some investing in my work, but it's investing in me. And I personally think that's just as important.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love the perspective. You know, it's all about playing the cards you're dealt. And I think, like you said about the dishes, it's little by little, just doing the right thing one step at a time, making it a habit.
Everything I do like
everything.
That. For like the last month, I'm like, don't want to make my bed, but got to do it. Don't want to put these clothes away, but I got to just do it. And it sucks at first, but I'm not going to lie and say, oh, it's amazing. It sucked at first, but now it's just become a habit, and it's part of my work life and my daily life.
Yeah, man, we want to thank you for coming on today. I think it's cool how we met, and appreciate you coming on and doing this. I think, you know, this is definitely the first time we've had someone with a strictly financial background, but glad you made it out of Temple, man. I think growing up in that area, I can vouch for you. It's not the best area. I wouldn't want to go there, but yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I enjoyed it. My first podcast. I hope I can do more.
Yeah. Thanks, Miles. It's great. It's awesome to hear your perspective, and yeah, that advice was needed more than you know. Sometimes a cliche is a cliche for a reason, and it's just something you should be hearing every day because it's life lessons learned by hundreds and thousands of people before you. So thanks for sharing.
Yep. And for anyone watching this, Miles' name will be tagged in the LinkedIn post. So whether you're 20 or 70 years old and you're trying to get your finances straight, just send him a message. So Miles, thanks again, and we will have you on. We'll have you on another time, maybe a couple months down the road if you're down.
All right, sounds like a plan to me.